Hey Revolution, everybody. Once again, this is your boy, Brother Leonard, the Truth Seeker, and I'm coming to you with a few minutes of truth. And I'm not going to be before you very long because I had a interesting day getting these videos out. I told you it's going to be one after another, but I saved this last one because I wanted a little bit of time to actually sit down and digest it again because I remember a few weeks ago when I first heard the story. It was right around the time, and don't mind the dog. That's my neighbor's dog. They yap all the time, and pretty soon my dog's gonna come out and yap too. So don't even worry about it. A few weeks ago, there was two situations where there were two church fights, and with both of them, I was waiting to get some more concrete information instead of just the he said, she said type stuff. There was one in Macon, Georgia. I think some people talked about it. I didn't talk about it yet. I don't think I'm going to talk about that one because it seems a little bit too messy. Even though the pastor there was apparently, I think he was cheating on his wife or something like that. You could check up on it. It's on YouTube. But this is the one I really wanted to talk about. It's in Detroit. See, Detroit is kind of interesting. Even though there has been a resurgence or anything like that within that city, it appears to me that Detroit and Atlanta are the centers of the black mega church. It seems like all the churches in Detroit and Atlanta seem to be just, it seems like, just so many different mega churches in those cities. And I've been to both cities, and it's just amazing when you're just driving down. And I recently was in Detroit because I was doing some other, about another story in Detroit, and I actually went up there. And as I was driving through the neighborhoods, and I was driving up and down, I forgot the name of that street I was on, but it was like a main drag, something Boulevard. Oh my goodness, I forgot. And I ended up on one of the, I think it was like 6th or 7th mile. One of those. I ended up on one of those mile streets up there. Those in Detroit, you know what I'm talking about. But I just kept passing big church after big church after big church, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Well, one of these big churches, one of these mega churches, is in some controversy right now. It's the Detroit World Outreach Church, and it's in Redford Township. I guess it's a little suburb of Detroit. And recently, earlier this year, the bishop, they call himself Bishop Benjamin Gibert, passed away. Nothing really to do with anything about him passing away. I mean, people die. Okay. But the events after his death are wow. I mean, it's just leaving things like, what's going on here? Well, first of all, the wife, after his death, basically said that the World Outreach Church of Detroit is my church. And I'm going to make this my church because I'm going to be pastor of it. They said before sometime she became the vice president of the church, and, we're going to become the church. But deacon board, or trustee board, or the board of the church said, no, you are not the pastor of this church. You're not going to take over this church. So one day, and I'm going to put the video after I give my commentary on this story. So one day, her name is I think her name is Charisse Gibert, the widow. Like they said, no, you're not going to be pastor. As a matter of fact, you're fired. they fired her from being whatever post that she had, and then they were looking to move on and sell. Now get this, listen to this. They're gonna sell the home of the church, that the parsonage of the church, and basically it's an 11,000 square foot home. 11,000 square feet. After the pastor died, they're like, we're gonna get rid of this. We're gonna get rid of this house. We're gonna move in a different direction, and you're not there. And also the church, the church, Pastor Bishop Gibert basically left them a $2 million policy. And right now, that's in contention. And because Charisse is thinking that she has rights to the church. The deacon board say that they have rights to the church. And they're in a legal dispute right now. But the things that bother me about this is that fact that they have an 11,000 square foot parsonage. And I don't think people understand when pastors have these big houses and they take these big houses with these properties that they take, and they have these big houses that are typically nowhere near the church, and they're probably typically somewhere else in some suburban neighborhood, and what that actually does to the neighborhood in which they move into, because say for instance, I think that this parsonage, I'm gonna look up I'm scrolling through. I'm gonna look through to find out. Okay, it's a $3 million mansion. $3 million mansion. Okay, now when you have a $3 million mansion in a place where mansions, are, because that's where they are. Mansions you just don't have a mansion in the hood. You did at one time, but not so much anymore. People who live in mansions want to live around people who live in mansions. Okay, so when you have a mansion, when you have this much of a property, you lose the property. Your property value goes down, and your tax rate goes up when a pastor or church decides to buy property in these neighborhoods. Now, I'm not trying to, it's not that big of a deal for me because I'm not in that situation, but it does say something about the church, because here's what happens when you take on a parsonage, and your parsonage is worth $3 million. That assessed value comes out of that neighborhood. So there's no taxes being paid by that church or by that person who lives in the parsonage once that church takes over that property. So everyone else's values will rise. I mean, their tax values will rise, property values come down, and then you sit up here wondering why the people in the mansions are sitting up here upset with some of these pastors. Because that's why. Because they didn't move to where they are to get with people that are going to take and devalue their property. But that's what happens. Especially is noticeable with a $3 million mansion. But that's a side note on this, and that's something that what happens, when these situations happen. So, but not only that, but that $3 million mansion, with the maintenance and upkeep of that mansion and the mortgage, the church was taking a big hit. They were taking a big hit, plus declining enrollment and the things that were going on. So after he died, his wife began firing some of the church elders and the board, and began putting her family and friends on the board as pimps do. And then, they tried to put, they tried to put her daughter on the board. They tried to put the daughter on the board, and her husband tried to put them on the board. And, church folk, deacon dude, we're like, no, we ain't having that. That ain't how it goes. That ain't how it is. So one day, in trying to figure out when this happened, one day, she showed up on March 19th to the church and tried to take over the live web feed, and then the cops were called. And then a week later, during Sunday service, she returned and wanted to speak to the congregation, and someone called law enforcement, and that's what you're going to see on that video. But it's just amazing. This church is worth $15 million, and is estimated to be worth $15 million, with a $3 million, including a $3 million mansion. Now, here's the thing about what happens with pastors who die. A lot of times, a lot of people are there because of that pastor. And after his death, and not just because of this incident, but just after his death, their membership has seen a significant decrease, because these churches are built on not the foundation that Christ has set, as he said, upon this rock, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. No, that's not what he was talking about. That's not what happens today. What happens today is they sit up there and build the foundation on that person. On that person. On charisma. On, boy, he could preach good. This is why I always wonder what's going to happen when, say, it's going to happen. But when, say, Bishop Jakes dies, what's going to happen? Or, say, Rob Parsley, when he dies. Or, pick your favorite preacher. When they die, what's going to happen to the church that they built? Because their church is definitely built not on the foundation that Christ outlined for us. It's built on them. The people go to hear them. The people go to see them. They go to be in their presence. Not the presence that Christ, not the foundation that Christ has built. So this church is experiencing that right now. And they're also experiencing this fight. And I find it interesting that regardless of the resolution, regardless of whoever this is, that this church still won't learn, because the next pastor that they pick will be basically doing the same thing that Bishop Gibert did, building a church on the foundation of them. Okay, so now wife Gibert is out of that church, and she's doing hotel church. It is what it is, and this church, and it seems like, and I hope someone in the comments knows the story, knows people, knows things. I think this church at one time was probably named something else, and as it grew, because Gibert as a pastor began to grow, that they went through this name change and this whole vision change and everything like that, like the preachers were doing. I think that's what happened, but I'm not so sure. So anybody that knows any of that stuff, you can hit me back on the comments on this. And I just wanted to get this story up real quick, and I'm almost out of time on my memory, so I want to be quiet and empty up some of this memory so I can get this video up to you. And now the dog is barking, so that's a good time to end it here. All right, Bishop. Bishop, that's enough. Go somewhere. Yeah. Bishop, go sit down. Go sit down. Sorry about that. But the neighbor dogs is here, so he's going to be going off. Yes, I named my dog Bishop. Yeah. All right, everybody. This is your boy, Brother Leonard, the Truth Seeker, once again, and I'm signing out. And hopefully, this will be my last video of the day. All right, everybody. Revolution.